There was a question as you were entering about how this actually would work in terms of would it be attractive to film developers, makers, because of the fact that the buildings are stacked, studios are stacked on top of each other. But yeah, I will hand over to you for the intro.
Evening, everyone. Lovely to see you all. I'm Soleil Mahidin. I head up the communications and engagement for Camden Film Quarter.
Good evening. I'm Simon Leo. I'm MD of Camden Film Quarter.
Hi, Lloyd Lee from Yoo Capital. Thank you for your time.
I'm Trev Morris. I'm the principal of Spark, and we are the master planners and architects.
So there was a question about film and television. Is it something that you'd like me to answer now?
Yeah, please. I mean, you're welcome to take.
Sure. I mean, we're perfectly happy to just field questions. We expect that many will be hurled at us, and that's okay. We accept that. We respect that. So if you like, I can certainly talk a little bit about why. So the answer on film and television has been something that has been, I would say, percolating for quite some time in central London, particularly in our own business. We are also involved with the Olympia project in West London, which is exhibitions, it's theaters, it's live entertainment, live music. And during COVID, actually, when we were under construction for a lot of the work that's going on there and opening later this year, a number of film and television companies asked us if they could use the halls during COVID because they were no columns, very, very high ceilings. And we did say, you do know that there's glass dome ceilings on the top. And they were like, there's just no sound stages for what we need. And so we started talking to a lot of the organizations in film and television, Film London, the BFI, BAFTA, et cetera, asking them, what do you think of this? Why do we keep getting calls during COVID to film in our exhibition halls, which obviously were closed during COVID for 3 years? And they encouraged us to continue to work with the industry because they believed that state-of-the-art modern film and television sound stages are important for London and for the United Kingdom to be able to create new content. And so we've done that. And in the work that we've done, and the same goes for Olympia, we've never designed music or theaters without theater operators and music venue operators who actually run these spaces. And so the way that, and Trevor can take over here in a second, the way that we've effectively designed the sound stages, the post-production spaces, the proximity of how things work together, the logistics spaces, are actually governed by the industry and how they've guided us to how to deliver these spaces. And that's really where it's come from. It's actually come from the industry. And so a lot of the things that you'll see in this building, and I know a lot of you will have a lot of questions about it, really are driven by the industry and what they're looking for in really world-class operating experiences.
It would be useful to address the question which was asked, which I realised you weren't in before, about the practicalities of having studios stacked on each other, because
you want to take that one? Yeah, sure.
One of the attendees suggested that that's not something that's going to be attractive to people working in the film industry.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And it's absolutely right. It's not been done too often before. It has been done before. It's been done in New York with Robert De Niro's studio called Wildflower. And in fact, some of our team who are working on Camden Film Quarter, on the structures and the engineering, were involved in that project. So I wouldn't say it's trailblazing, but it's certainly innovative, and certainly innovative for the UK. And because it has been done before, operationally, because that is trading as a series of sound stages, we get the opportunity to see what works well. But probably more importantly, we get the opportunity to see what hasn't worked quite so well, and we can learn from that. And the key criteria is actually about circulation. It's about the vertical transportation, and also about resilience. But also, unlike Wildflower, this is actually, again, a pretty unique situation here, because what we're looking at doing is bringing film production into a community. So again, if you look at Wildflower, that is something which is separate. What we're looking at doing is actually how do we integrate that? And we've done that through design. So in fact, our first sound stage starts at level 2. So those lower levels are about creating spaces which are open, far more kind of active, and effectively a street scene. And then looking at all the logistics happens inside of the building. So when I'm talking about logistics, I'm talking about the freight transportation happens inside of the building to control sound, but also operations and also security. Security in film is also very important. It's about how we kind of separate public spaces and also the more secure spaces inside of the film studios. So we have tested it. We've been talking to the studio fraternity. These are buildings which are not cheap to construct, so you certainly don't want to make mistakes. You want to make sure, prove the concept that people will become. So we've been talking to the studio operators, getting their feedback and looking at how those spaces will operate, both internally and also looking at the production facilities which are being created. And that ecosystem is so important, the ecosystem of sound stages, post-production, the schools, which are also part of the development as well, kind of feeding into the industry.
So the questions to answer are, is it financially viable? What would it bring to Kentish Town in terms of creative benefits other than the film studio? Will you commit to 50% affordable homes? And what is the square footage of social homes?
Thank you. So just dealing with the first question about subsidising the film studios, that's really not the case at all. We're pledged 50% affordable. It probably wraps up into the second question, that our housing delivery partners, Places for People, who are a strategic partner to Camden Council already, part of their corporate pledge is to deliver 50% affordable housing. So as partnership, we're absolutely delivering that. I would say also that of the 10-year split, almost a third of that is 3-bedroom homes, so genuine family accommodation. And we are absolutely standing by our pledge of 50% affordable, not only across land outside of Camden's control, up in the northwest corner, but also policy compliant on land within Camden's ownership. So, and also the mix of units is policy compliant, as I mentioned. Almost 50% is 3-bed units, and of that, approximately 50% is social rent as well. So it's a really genuinely a genuine mix that I think will appeal to the local environment, to the local neighbourhood. In terms of the Section 106, yes, it's a legal obligation for us to deliver the 50% affordable. We are in conversation with Camden Council at the moment. It's part and parcel of the requirements. Should we get a resolution to grant that, we'll need to enter into that. We've tried to maximise the amount of family housing that can be provided as part of it within that 50% threshold. And you have to understand, 50% affordable offer is across the London development pipeline is very, very rare. So we've really tried to ensure that we're delivering as higher volume and percentage of affordable housing and quality than we can actually provide.
It's not an answer. The question about the percentage of social homes by square foot hasn't been answered.
So the policy, so we're delivering 50% affordable by units. In terms of the square footage, I couldn't tell you, but well, I don't know where the 10% comes from, but what I can say is that in mentioning about 30%, almost 30% is 3-bedroom apartments. So that doesn't quite correlate in my mind. We can come back and confirm the square footage, but what I can say is 50% by units, which is the policy requirement we are meeting.
Yeah, thank you. The question about the creativity. Yeah. So Camden Film Quarter has a whole host of facilities. Yes, the sound stage is a part of it, but alongside the sound stages, there are 2 schools which are associated with the film industry. So the LSA, which is a free school, and that's grassroots, so that's 16 to 18-year-olds, and that's a free offer. And it's worth saying that film as a medium isn't just about the actors on set. It's also about stage design. It's electricians, it's hair and makeup. There's a huge creative aspect which goes into it beyond just the actors on stage. The sound stages also come along with workshops, and those workshops for stage design and stage sets also happening on site. So we don't see that these are closed doors at all. We see that actually this is an incredibly creative location, which will be feeding into a much wider base, not just the films behind closed doors.
I think someone mentions that there would be, in other film studios, there's a lot of parking. Car parks that come with it, and obviously...
Yeah, sure, thank you.
We don't have capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you're right, but those film studios tend to be out of town. They're not as well connected as Kentish Town. And so the idea here is obviously when it comes to stage design, for example, and bringing scenery, that has to be kind of brought in, and there are facilities within Camden Film Quarter to be accommodating that inside of the building. So car parking is limited, very, very limited when compared to other facilities. And what we're looking at doing is actually how we are bringing local talent, local employment, local jobs into the industry. Of course, supported by the 2 schools. So 2 elements to unpack in there. I'll deal with the first one first in terms of Winnebagos, because that's an excellent point. I keep talking about the ecosystem of the studios here, and that's exactly what we're looking at doing. These are self-sufficient. So the idea is that you don't have the Winnebagos, the elements which would normally be created through Winnebagos, that accommodation is actually created within the buildings themselves, including the accommodation, including those workshops and those build areas. So the catering as well, all done inside of the film studio building. So if you kind of look around and see a stage set, you do see lots of vehicles around. That's because actually those facilities aren't created. Here, this is self-sufficient buildings which bring all that into place. When it comes to why, I can pass over to you, Jonathan, but we also have Oxygen Studios here, and I wonder if actually Mark's best placed to kind of talk about that. Okay, because there's a lot of work which has been done into why you would come here. So it's this gentleman here who kind of talked about why would you come here. And that's very much about how the market demand of the industries we've been talking to, so Mark's here from Oxygen Studios, who will be the operator of the studios, has been doing that research, effectively informing the brief. So these are very, very specific buildings that you don't bring forward unless you have that confidence that the market's there to support it.
Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had all these conversations with a lot of the major production houses, a number of independents as well, in terms of the design of the spaces. I know what you say around, especially over the last 18 months, 2 years, there has been, because of the writer strikes, etc., a number of spaces available in the UK. This, I believe, off last year's numbers and what we're seeing going into this year, and what the production houses are telling us they're going to be producing content over the next 12, 18 months. That's changing quite quickly, and a lot of the space that was, we had, I think, about 5 million square foot planned of new films, sound stages being developed post-COVID. When you talk about that sort of streaming boom, nearly all that's fallen away now because the values of data centres often in some places have overshot film studios, and they've, Sunset Boulevard's sort of gone, Hopping Bedford's gone, various other bits as well. So yes, Warner Brothers have extended, and Amazon are extending in Bray, but even both those parties don't necessarily believe that all of their content I don't believe our sound stages is going to be hugely more expensive than any of the other sound stages within the sort of core area, sort of down from Shepperton up to Elstree, where we've got Fairbank Studios up at Elstree and have historically run Longcross and Arborfield as well. So the rents are not hugely out of kilter, and I think that from a point of view of a lot of the talent that comes from around this Camden area and travels out to Pinewood, down to Shepperton in cars on a daily basis, doesn't then have to do that. So I think there's benefits.
Right, I will pass back. So the questions are around plans for a 4-bed, the human impact of this, and we've heard quite a tragic story about how someone's life is going to be upheaval, and I'm sure that's not a unique case. Whether your motivation is purely profit, and have you tried to get up Kentish Town roads?
So I'll just cover the 4-bed affordable units that the gentleman asked, and also talk about construction traffic. So obviously, in terms of just relating back to what I said earlier, in terms of the 50% affordable, because we are pledging to deliver 50% affordable, viability does need to come into it in terms of the housing mix. We've obviously been liaising with Camden Council to ensure that we are delivering genuine family housing. Larger apartments than 3 beds, as I said earlier, we are policy compliant. So we really do feel that the family housing at 3-bed is the maximum that we can offer based upon the viability. We're social rent. So so if you take the 3-bed apartments, for example, we're delivering almost 50% of that as social rent units. That's social rent. Yeah. 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 Just covering the other lady's question about the Kentish Town High Street. Obviously, that's outside of our own the land that we control, and it's difficult for me to really give a meaningful response to that. But what I can say is that should we gain planning permission, we will need to liaise very carefully and closely with Camden Council on the construction management plan to ensure that we have as painless process as possible in terms of construction traffic into Camden Film Quarter. No.
So Louise has kindly checked all the data, and she's telling me, please tell me I'm right here, Louise, 60% of the rented homes are London living rent of social rent. Is that correct? Thank you. 40% intermediate. Is that correct?
Hi, everybody. My name is Gareth Fox. I'm advising Yoo Capital on the town planning aspects of things. So I'm not the affordable housing expert, but I have the figures here. It was rightly stated that 50% of the proposals will be affordable housing. And rightly you ask, what does that mean? It means a lot of quite complicated things, but I'll try and summarise it. 60% of that 50% will be low-cost rented homes, and that's provided as either London affordable rent or social rent. Now, the details of precise values beyond that, I can't tell you, but we could provide you that information.
28% social rent. I'm just saying.
Could be right.
Yeah, I am right. I can.
But and up to you whether you think that's acceptable or not, of course, but in my experience, these levels of affordable housing in a scheme like this are almost unheard of in London. It's up to you whether you think that's enough or not. So planning policy is that proposed residential floor space creates the need for affordable housing. Okay, I can't speak to the profit, but all I can tell you is that the proposals are a very rare beast in providing 50% affordable overall, and not only that, but meeting Camden's tenure split and a very large proportion of what I would describe personally as genuinely affordable, and not only genuinely affordable, but in a mix of units with a preponderance of 3-bed units, which is in high demand in Camden for family housing. I think I'm right in saying, Camden Council can speak for themselves, that actually 4-bed apartments for families is actually not a terribly desirable product. Well, that's exactly the point. So having a 4-bed flat on the 20th floor isn't a great place to raise kids. And it's on the height, it's a good point. So I'm just a humble planner here, and I'll policy that here. But the growth area, Regis Road, has been identified by Camden as an area that could accommodate tall buildings, could. And it's our responsibility to analyse the proposals and justify the height that we think is necessary to deliver such a very large amount of affordable housing. That does come with size. It's a simple fact that a critical mass of units needs to be delivered in order to support the delivery of 50% affordable housing. So that's the proposition.
So I think the question, and it's a good one, is trust. It's a good one, because the key thing is that, and I say this to everyone anytime I come into a room, you may not like what I have to say. You might hate what I have to say, but you should never feel like I lied to you. There's a difference. There is a difference. I'm not here to lie to anybody. That's not who I am. Forget the firm. That's not who I, hold on. So I'm going to get to that. In 2010, we actually delivered 50% affordable housing in Greenwich Square during the recession, 645 homes. It was 50% affordable housing. We did not back away from that. It was very difficult to do, and people live there today. We've done it. It doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we won't make mistakes. But when we say we've committed to 50% affordable housing, and we can talk about the definitions, we can talk about the unit mixes. Camden Council were really the main people who decided what the correct unit mixes were based on all of the people who apply for housing to them. But we did it. And we're here and we're saying today, we're going to do it. We've done it before, and we will do it. We also wanted to make sure that when we think about bulk and scale and height, which I know, we all live somewhere in some neighborhood, and everyone has the same concern. It's just that this doesn't happen to be where I live, it's where you live. And I understand that because the roles could be reversed, where you come and build something next to my back window, and I get that. And I'm not telling you I don't get that. But what I can say is that when we think about the number of responsibilities that this project has to create jobs, to create educational opportunities, to make sure that those are free educational opportunities. People have come into our public consultations and talked about youth crime, gangs. What does that 14-year-old have to look forward to? I need you to basically give that kid a future. I need you to give him that school. And so these are the kinds of commitments we are also trying to balance, which is to gift that school, to gift 2 schools. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone or that anyone here is better than anyone else, but we are genuinely trying to make sure that we can look after the film and television industry, which has had a lot going on in it, create jobs, focus on the UK so that people don't necessarily go out to Romania to basically film, that they look at the London talent pool, which is incredibly good, and say, I'm going to work right here with this crew because they're talented and they've got the facilities and they've invested in themselves as a community to make sure that when I choose where to film, where to give my business, I can give it here. That I can look after young kids who come through the industry who may not want to become scientists, who may want to go into the arts. And as a result, when you go to the LSA, I did it. You can talk to the person behind the camera, you can talk to the seamstress. I've done it. I've talked to her about how she was going to do the seam across the back of a period dress in order to make her film. The fact of the matter is, we also want to make sure we have that kind of approach in how we build these places to create creative quarters that are accessible and open to people.
So I just wanted to pick up on the comment from the lady about the recycling centre and the residential. Obviously, the recycling centre is part of the re-provision of the existing recycling centre. And again, the residential above is for the re-provision for the Camden-owned flats adjacent to the Holmes Road depot. We've spent a long time speaking with the Waste Authority as well as Camden, the Waste Authority's consultants, to come up with a design for a facility that meets modern requirements, that meets necessary standards in terms of health and safety, through the mechanical extraction, through the specification of the build of the recycling centre itself, to ensure that the residential above is absolutely safe. So we have worked with those bodies for a year and a half to ensure that we get to that point, and we're confident that we can deliver both elements to that particular building.
Okay, if I could just respond to that. So I'm the architect for the recycling centre, and I absolutely would not be grading any building which wasn't safe. We have spoken to London Fire Brigade. We've also spoken to specialist fire consultants. The first question we asked before we even started drawing anything, is this possible? So it is actually designed as a 2-hour fire-rated box. The recycling center is fully encapsulated. Minimum 2 hours. Yes. But if I can just kind of finish on the design, then we can talk about where the others are. And I guess it's a little bit like other aspects of the vision. We can't point to 100 or even 5 of these which have been done. There are new topologies which we're bringing forward. And if we kind of think about what the SPD vision calls for, what they are actually calling for is innovative design to create solutions. Now, it is innovative design. It is unusual, but it has to be safe. It doesn't come with compromise. Absolutely no compromise. So we're putting in extra staircases, even though the regulations doesn't call for it. Look, I completely understand, Grenfell. As an architect, of course, we completely understand it. Absolutely, the moral compass is incredibly high, incredibly high. And somebody said, would I live there? Actually, I would live there. Because the consequence of the recycling centre actually means that there's a floor space which is created. We created a courtyard, we created private amenity space, really good quality, green private amenity space for the community who will move to this building. It's designed to actually prosper community. So actually the way that the corridors, the way that the vertical circulation works, it's been designed on evidence-based. We've taken a lot of time to look at the design of it, the layout of it, the format of it, how it relates to the listed building, because again, there's a listed building right next to it. So it's very much a contextual response. Of course, everyone has their opinion if it's too big or not. Of course they do. We understand that.
I am really, really sorry. These are really valid points, but we have to be out of this room in 10 minutes, and we want to be able to discuss next steps and how to work together as a community. So I'm going to say thank you to you for being here. We will very much be in touch with you and hope to get some proper answers on the social housing split.